As Hurricane Fiona blows through the Caribbean and heads our way, there's plenty of concern for our coastline in Nova Scotia. Storm surge is expected to be a major problem this weekend. So how accurate have you found these predictions to be in the past?
They're quite accurate. What they don't take into account is how fast the water is going to move across the terrain. But it's been our experience that the mapping with this approach actually meets up quite well with what we typically observe when we go out and survey areas afterward. What you're seeing here is a color shaded relief map of the LiDAR, and this is what was used to build the flood layers. I will look at what the predicted storm surge is. So this is using the gauge at Port Hood. As I hover over the graph, you'll see there's the peak water level. So the tide was predicted to be 8.5, the surge 1.76, gives us a total of 2.6. We don't take into account waves. So let's just put this up to about 4 meters, accounting for wave run-up and so forth. So now we see that there is significant flooding.
In addition to Antigonish, what other areas are you concerned about?
Oh, I think all along the Northumberland Strait is going to be quite vulnerable to the surge. There also, Environment Canada is stating that the eastern side of Cape Breton and Canso area is also vulnerable, but it's the Northumberland Strait that I'm really concerned about, given the type of coastline, mud banks and so forth, that I think we're going to see flooding and some significant erosion.
Okay, I'm sure lots of people up that way share your concern. Tim Webster, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Always a pleasure.
And you can get to that through just if you Google NSCC and coastal flooding map, I believe it'll get you there. Anyway, as Hurricane Fiona draws nearer, this is a good tool to be able to take a look at, because it's going to lead you to a coastal flood risk map on the Nova Scotia Community College website, where you can zoom in on many of the most densely populated areas of this province, and then manually you can actually raise the water level, the flood level, anywhere from 0.1 meter to up to 12 meters, and you can watch what happens and where the risk areas are. It's very sobering. But also, and perhaps more importantly right now, also on this map, you can check out the projected storm surge for different parts of the province. You can see how the timing of that aligns or does not align with high tide. Tim Webster is on the line now. He's going to tell us more about this tool. Tim is a research scientist and leader of applied geomatics research at NSCC. Tim, how are you? Welcome to Mainstreet.
I'm well, Jeff. Thank you very much.
My first inclination, I'm sure it's a lot of people's first inclination, is to, of course, go to your house, right, where you live. And there's a few places, like, it's interesting to me because as I looked at this map, there are places on the Bay of Fundy, for example, right? Digby. Bay of Fundy has the highest tides in the world, and we know that this storm is going to be coming in, but because of the timing, this tells us that even though the tides are high, the actual risk for surge along the Bay of Fundy seems to be quite low.
You're right. Yeah, virtually no storm surge predicted for Digby. Whereas if you go and load to Port Hood or Pictou in our tide station list, we'll see those surges are up on the order of 1.8 meters, and as I mentioned, coinciding with high tide. So instead of a tide being something like 0.46 meters or so, or 0.5 meters above mean sea level, now the total water level is going to be 2.5 meters above.
That's a lot of water. That's significant. Yeah.
There's an option there that says critical facilities and roads, and a little button beside it that says go. When you hit go, that actually goes off to a server, overlays the flood polygon on these other GIS layers we just talked about, including roads, and will come back and basically report to you how many kilometers of roads are going to be covered in water, how many If so, how many ambulance depots, etc. So very good for the emergency management folks in terms of thinking about evacuation and if they need to move people around, what routes could be cut off and things like that.
There's several areas on this tool, on this map, that have really, really detailed LiDAR information. These seem to me, again, with my sort of cursory overview of it, to sort of coincide with populated areas of the province. So what's available in those areas that have been LiDAR mapped?
Sure. So as you described, when you first come into the map, you'll see these blue polygons with these colorful maps underneath. And these are what we call color shaded relief maps. So they've been manipulated on the computer so the topography allows somebody to kind of interpret a hill, a valley, and so forth. And you're quite right. These have been covered with this LiDAR high resolution elevation models. And this is the underlying technology that's allowed us to build these flood layers every 10 centimeters. So right now, the one that's defaulted to come on is called the bare earth elevation model. So we've stripped away the trees and so on.
What's next for you, Tim, with this project? I understand that you put a drone up yesterday up near River John. What information are you gathering there?
Sure. So the beauty of the drone is, and it's collecting LiDAR as well. So we popped it up yesterday. We had to go get some gear and swap some gear out. So we made sure we were going to record this storm, water level, and so on. So the drone, we flew along essentially to get a before shot, the detailed bank topography and elevation, as well as pictures. Sunday, we're going to head up with that same drone and do an after shot. Okay. And then we'll be able to quantify how much erosion has taken place. We'll also survey in any of the debris line where the water had been standing from the waves crashing up and bringing debris up in low-lying areas. If I raise the water level, how vulnerable am I? Maybe I should build the cottage a little farther back or a little higher on a higher ground. So it's also can be used for a bit of a planning tool as well.
Tim, thank you so much. It's a fantastic tool.
My pleasure, Jeff. Always great talking to you.
Okay, you too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Tim Webster is research scientist and leader of the Applied Geomatics Research Group at NSCC.
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.